Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel, I Read Black Books. This is something I've been putting off for a while, and that's giving you a tour of my bookshelves. And of course, since it's almost October, I'm going to start with all of the horror books on my bookshelves. I don't want to say I mainly read horror books because I do read other genres, but I am a big fan of horror fiction. I love horror movies, and I love to read horror books that are written from a Black perspective. So I love collecting Black horror books. So in this video, we'll start with some of my favorites, that bookshelves that I have dedicated to a specific author or genre, and I'll go through and talk about each book on my horror bookshelf. So let's get into it. So if you've seen any of my videos recently or before, you probably noticed who I have on this top bookshelf. It's dedicated to one author in particular. I have a collection of all of her books except for one, I think. I have all of her horror books, and I've collected them over the years. I've read all of these. They are all great in their own way. And the author that I'm talking about is Tananarive Due. The first book on this shelf is My Soul to Keep. And this is an alternate cover. I actually like this cover better than the original. This is a really good story. It's basically about a woman who's a journalist in Miami, and she comes across a few stories that are all linked to people being unalived in a certain way, and that just leads her down a rabbit hole. And as she gets closer to the truth, she realizes that the person or persons behind these unalivings are actually closer to her than she realizes. Is someone like really close to her. I see this book a lot mentioned as a vampire book, but I really didn't get that from reading this. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is not a vampire book, I don't think. Let me know in the comments if you've read this book and you think it's a vampire book, and please let me know what I missed, because I didn't get that from this book. The next book is the more popular cover to My Soul to Keep, and this is a series, by the way, and this is book one of the African Immortal series. And I think this little blurb from Stephen King on the top of this book is where people are getting vampire book from, but because he's kind of comparing it to Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, which I've never read, but I mean, I guess that this may be where people are getting the idea that this is a vampire book from. But again, if you know something I don't, then please let me know in the comments. What did I miss? The next book is Ghost Summer. It is a collection of short stories, and short stories is where Tananarive Due really shines. She's really good at setting up a story and following through all the way to the end. I really enjoy her short stories. The next book is a really great book. I really love The Good House by Tananarive Due. It is one of my absolute favorite books of all time. I talk about this book all the time. I recommend it all the time, but I mean, it's not for everybody. It has a really slow but steady buildup that intensifies with all the little incidences and backstories that further explain what's going on currently. And it has a huge climax and satisfying ending that's just like so worth the read. Definitely recommend this book, but check the content and trigger warnings in here. Next book is Joplin's Ghost. This was a solid read. It was good. It really opened up my eyes to who Scott Joplin was and his impact on ragtime music. This is another one that goes back and forth between decades and characters. It's told in Scott Joplin's point of view and in the main character's point of view, and the singer, I forget her name right now, but she was also a character in the African Immortal series, the My Soul to Keep series. Those two stories kind of intersect, which is really cool, but this was also just a good, solid read. I'm skipping these next two because these are actually my favorite by Tananarive Due, and nobody really talks about them, so we'll come back to those. All right, so the next book is My Soul to Take. This is the last book in the African Immortal series, and it's my least favorite in this series. It's my least favorite Tananarive Due book, all because it's petty, but I did not like the main character. I didn't like her decisions. I didn't like her friends. I didn't like anything that happened in this book. Read it just to see what happens and how they follow through from book one, book two, and book three, how she was gonna finish it up in this series. But they were just all just dumb decisions. This next book is The Between, and this book is a lot different from the rest of her novels. This one is a psychological horror. It is heavily based on the main character's mental health and the deterioration of it as he's going through this personal nightmare in his life that is altering his perception of what's real and what's not real. I have a candle from Hex and Wax Candle Co. that I got, you saw me get at the Oddities and Curiosities Expo. It's my little doll head that I got from a oddity shop. It reminds me of a character in The Reformatory. I think a lot of people have discovered Tananarive Due recently because of this book and how popular it is and just how much, social media is talking about this book. And it's a really good book. This book had me on the edge of my seat. I was sweating. I almost read this book in one sitting. I didn't want to put it down. I didn't want to leave little Robbie. And the doll head definitely reminds me of the character Blue from the book. If you know, you know. The next book is The Living Blood. This is my favorite book in the African Immortal series. It has edge of your seat suspense. My eyes couldn't read words fast enough, and if you've read it, you know. The next book is Blood Colony. It's book 3 in the African Immortal series, and from what I remember about this book, it's a solid read. I can't really remember too much about this book. I think it just picks up right after where book 2 leaves off. I can't really remember anything exciting about this book. Next is The Wishing Pool. This is a really good, cozy book of short stories by Tananarive Due, and some of these stories are actually really, really creepy. I really liked The Rumpus Room, and there's another story in here called Incident at Bear Creek Lodge that I really enjoyed, and that's actually going to be the title of her next book. So she's going to maybe continue with this story or kind of expand on the story. Back to those 2 books that I skipped, and those are Devil's Wake and Domino Falls. And these are 2 books, 2 YA books. I think they're young adult. They don't really read like young adult, but I think they are considered young adult. And she co-wrote these books with her husband Stephen Barnes, who is also an author. It is about a virus that spirals out of control. I think I read this around the same time as COVID began happening, so it was a really intense read just because the things that were happening in the book and the things that were happening in real life at the time. I think I want to read this again for October. There's also a short film on YouTube that is based on Devil's Wake, the first chapter or 2 or 3 of Devil's Wake, and it's really good. I'll put it in the description. Okay, and that's all of my Tananarive Due books. I'm a huge fan of Tananarive Due, and this top of my horror bookshelf is dedicated to her. My next bookshelf is dedicated to vampire books. I don't know what it is about this Halloween season, but I've been really into vampires and bats for some reason. I don't see a lot of Black vampire books being recommended or talked about. There's quite a few out there. You just have to go digging around, and some of them are pretty old, but they're out there. So we'll start with Dark Thirst, and this is one of those older ones that I'm talking about. This is a book of short stories all about vampires and all from some of the OG Black writers. And you can see the list of the authors. You'll definitely see some you recognize and some that maybe you won't, but these are all really good. I think this was written maybe in the early 90s, early 2000s, so just be aware of some of the terminology and slang in the book. And for all of the books in this video, please check the content and trigger warnings before reading. Read these at your own risk. Most of these are very adult. Next book is Fledgling. This is one book that you want to check the content and trigger warnings before you go into this book, please. I've never finished this book. I cannot get past the first few pages of this book. If you know, you know. And if you have, how did you get through that? Can you give me some advice for getting through the first few pages of this book, please, in the comments? Thank you. I think I may try it on audio on higher speed so it can just blow past the beginning of this book and try to see if I can just get that out of my head. On a lighter note, this is a really underrated, funny vampire book. I really enjoyed this book. It's so funny and it's a good story. There's a good ending, and it's just a great addition to my vampire book collection. I haven't seen this book talked about a lot, so if you haven't read it, you can pause and read the synopsis. I won't spoil it for you, but I really enjoyed this one, and It's one of those books that I didn't want to end. Next is another book that I have not read yet, but I have it and I'm gonna read this book. This next on my TBR. It's The Gilded Stories. It's been on my TBR for a very long time, and I know it's gonna be good. So I bought this really nice used copy on eBay and I'm gonna read it. Succulents by Jade Royal. This is an underrated book. Jade Royal really introduced me to the Black paranormal romance genre, and she used to be my go-to for paranormal romance for a very long time. You can read the synopsis. It's very, very adult. Make sure you check your content warnings again. There's 2 in this series. I forget what the name of book 2 is though. Next is Devils Kill Devils by Johnny Copton, and initially I gave this book a bad rap for being too wordy and detailed, but I think it's a good in-depth take on vampire religion. It's about a woman who goes through a horrific ordeal on her wedding night that sets off this chain of chaotic events that tie to her past. It's a very good take on vampire folklore. It's something that you really don't see done. You could tell this author did a lot of research. It is just very lengthy. It's one of those books where the chapter starts off with the situation, but it then goes back into some backstory, and then the chapter ends with something like really messed up happening. And you're just like, what? After reading like a whole soliloquy of backstory and philosophy, then it goes back to the initial event that happens in the beginning of the chapter, and then it takes it to like 12, and like you're forced to just go to the next chapter to see what's going on. And it does that on and on and on. And there is story there. There's a lot going on in this book, and it's very gory. But I mean, if you are looking for something that just goes from point A to point B, this ain't it. You're gonna have to really read in this book. Next is Blood Slaves. Y'all saw me get this in my birthday vlog, and I had explained that I had an e-arc of this book, but the formatting was so bad on Kindle. I couldn't read it. I couldn't get into it. I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I hope to get to it soon. Okay. So now that we have all of that out the way, now we get into my favorite vampire series of all time. If you've been watching my videos for a while, then you know that I am talking about the Vampire Huntress Legend series by L.A. Banks. Let's get into it, because this series right here, some have come close, and those books will be discussed in a later video. But right now we're going to talk about the Vampire Huntress Legend series by L.A. Banks. This is my favorite book series ever. They all tell a continuous story of Damali, the chosen vampire and demon huntress, and her team of guardians, including the love of her life, as they battle vampires, demons, vampire and demon hybrids, werewolves, ghosts, monsters, all of it while bringing light and positivity to the human race. So it starts with Minion, book 1, and it just builds after that. But sadly, Leslie passed away in 2011, but her legendary contribution to Black fantasy and urban paranormal literature will live forever, especially in my library, and because she did it the best way. All right, so let's go through these covers. First, you have, like I said, book 1 is Minion. Then you have The Awakening, and after that, you have The Hunted, which I am on right now. So I'm rereading this series again for the 3rd time, I believe. And I am on book 3, but I've been stuck on book 3 since maybe July. I don't know why. I just keep picking up new books and forgetting that I'm reading this book. So if you want to catch up and maybe read this with me, I'm still stuck on book 3. So you have book 1 and book 2, which are actually shorter than book 3. So if you read through those 2 first, you'll probably catch up with me. I'll probably still be on book 3 until maybe the end of October. I love the little details in each cover, like her Isis blade, her Sankofa tattoo, and you can always see like a little outline or shadow of Carlos in the covers. So I really enjoy these covers. Next is The Bitten. This is my favorite cover just because it feels so vampy, and like I said, I'm kind of in my vampire season, so I really love this cover. Then you have The Forbidden. Next is The Damned, then The Forsaken, The Wicked, The Cursed, The Shadows, The Darkness, and the third. So again, I'm currently reading this series again for a third time. If you have read this before, you know. I am going to leave it at that for now. Talking about any other book right now just wouldn't do the book any justice because, I mean, I just talked about the Vampire Huntress Legend series. So next video will be all of the rest of the horror books in my library. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and also what other Black vampire books am I missing? I know one that many of y'all are probably thinking about right now, but I don't know about that one. I DNF'd it and I have no urge to give it another shot. I'm so sorry. Thanks for watching. Bye.